So, Michael, how does it feel to be a visual aid? Yeah. Oh, so cute. Nice song, Michael. Michael, and I first met 25 years ago. And, pardon? Yeah, we were 8. You look darn good. Yes. I have a hair on my face. Sorry. I just, it's so wonderful to have the experience of that familiarity with people that you've known for years and years. And we've gone through lots of stuff together over that 25 years. And so it's always my pleasure to hear you sing. I say, you and John Denver, pitch perfect. Yes, yes. I'm dating myself. So first of all, let me tell you what a wonderful group of brilliant and conscientious individuals you all are. I just want you all to know that from my perspective, that you are all my most wonderful teachers, that I have come to believe that when I set the coaching arena every day and I invite people into my life to coach me, I am never disappointed in the level to which, hi John, welcome back. Yay! I'm never disappointed in the way in which my lessons come to me. Because as I said one Sunday here, the root of the word disappointment is failure to keep one's appointment with God. So I want you to know that when I choose these talk titles, sometimes it's weeks in advance. And while we're working on the first 4 Roman numeral chapters of the Science of Mind, which is the book that we use in this teaching, who knew that the talk title, A New Outlook, would be so prophetic for today? Last week I talked about the many names for God and the synonyms in omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence, the aspects of God determined to be those of all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-present. This week the chapter is called The Way It Works, and we have had a significant demonstration in our life this week to see the way it works, to see the way God works in our lives. And it works in our lives by finding conscious and individualized expression through each one of us. It is essentially an opportunity for us to find our authentic self and to begin being what has already been our reality, but we just haven't remembered it or we haven't been conscious of it. Remember Neil Donald Walsh's conversations with God in was it the 80s or the 90s? Maybe the 90s. In the 90s where he talked about our coming to our authentic self was just about our remembering who we are. It's always been there. We just forgot for a little while. We were kind of asleep for a little while, and now we come to that place where we're remembering. God finds an outlet in and through everything in our lives. God finds an outlet in and through everything that happens in our lives. And if we say that one thing is right or one thing is wrong, that's my assessment of what it looks to me. That's my perception of what it looks to me. Years ago, I heard Dr. Carlton Whitehead give this wonderful talk. He was one of Ernest Holmes' proteges, and he had a large work in Chicago. And his talk was titled Gomzo. And I never saw the word written, so I always spelled it Gomzo. And it turns out that that's not entirely accurate. Gomzo, I think it's a cartoon character as well, isn't it? Yes, it might be a cartoon character. But Dr. Whitehead said that loosely translated, this was an Aramaic word that meant everything happens for good. Well, yesterday I had an opportunity for an extremely in-depth conversation with a wonderful rabbi from Camarillo who had been given the article from the newspaper that was written about what transpired here last Sunday, and by a member of his temple who was also a religious scientist. And I know it's so interesting to me how what goes around comes around. And this incredible man reached out to me by email, first of all, and then we had a conversation yesterday afternoon, which was extremely fulfilling to me. He's a brilliant, brilliant man. And what he said is the phrase is gamzu itova, is the actual phrase. And he said it means literally, this too is for good. So Carlton had sort of shortened it a little bit and put his own spin on it. But there truly is one spirit back of all expression. And when I wanted to talk about this idea of Gamzo today, here this wonderful rabbi showed up for me just in the same way other people have shown up for me this week. There truly is one spirit back of all expression. And this energy is in everything. And that the meaning of this mystical biblical phrase that we hear, in him we live, move, and have our being, now makes sense to me. It makes sense that when we are in conscious contact with God, then things rise up in support of us in a way, again, that we can understand. Rabbi Michael told me this wonderful story straight out of the Talmud, which is apropos to today. And I'm going to share that with you this morning. He said, in a small village, a young woman spreads an unkind rumor. Her victim goes to the village rabbi to get justice for her ruined reputation. The gossip monger offers to make amends by taking back her words, demonstrating that she does not truly understand the harm that she has caused. The rabbi invents a creative way to teach the heedless woman the destructive power of rumors and gossip. He tells her, "Take my feather pillow to the market square, cut it open, and let the feathers fly through the air. When this task is done, bring back the feathers, every one." Although she thinks the rabbi has gone mad, she follows his strange instructions. And of course, she cannot possibly retrieve all the feathers, and thus learns the intended lesson. I suppose, she sighed as she lowered her head, they are like the words that I can't take back from the rumor I spread. So a rumor has been spread a bit that our center engages in anti-Semitic behavior. And it was written thusly in the article in the newspaper. And it is a difficult thing to read at best. Now, I'm wondering if I should actually read the article to you as it was written in the newspaper. And I'm seeing many, many heads shaking up and down. So, okay, popular opinion, I bow. It said, a board member took the stage and addressed the congregation with remarks that degraded into anti-Semitism. Of the approximately 100 people present, about 8 rose to their feet and told the speaker his remarks were unacceptable and were contributing to the uncivil discourse so prevalent in America at this time. Those few people left the church, unwilling to listen to the insulting remarks. Amazingly, another 90 or so people remained. They said nothing. It was a flashback to 1940s Germany, where people with megaphones and microphones denigrated Jews, while people of generally goodwill said nothing and did nothing. Now is not the time for people of goodwill to do nothing, to remain silent. Now is the time for people of goodwill to rise and denounce anyone who insults, denigrates, speaks poisonous words against any group. We must not allow any form of religious or ethnic repression to stand in America today. We are all one people. We must defend each other's right to live in peace, all of us, not some of us, all of us, together. When we hear it or see it, we must stand against it. Like pornography, we will know prejudice when we hear it, when we see it, and when we do stand up. Now, that was the article written by someone I don't know, someone who doesn't typically attend this center, but who had created an opportunity for herself to be heard, either secondhand or firsthand. I don't know if this person was in the congregation last Sunday to form her own opinion. It doesn't say that she actually heard it in the article. It may have been conveyed to her secondhand. So Rabbi Michael said to me that the woman's words were inflammatory in a way that served no one, and that the feathers could not be put back in the pillowcase, pillowcase. He said there are people who will believe what was written in the paper. There will be people who will believe that Stephen's inarticulate handling of the New Testament story was an intentional anti-Semitic statement, and there are people who are going to believe what they need to believe in order to feel better about themselves. This was Rabbi Michael talking to me. It appears in our current state of high anxiety that we are willing to believe the worst about someone instead of the best about that same someone. And I think we don't often perpetuate praise-filled comments about people. Someone said last Sunday, if something really good happens, 1 or 2 people hear about it. But if something really awful happens, 20 or 30 people hear about it. It seems the need to perpetuate bad news because it's far more interesting than good news. And you see it in the headlines of the newspapers all the time. And so today I'm offering a new outlook and a new insight into the way God works in our lives. Anyone who was here last Sunday has been provoked, inspired, and excited into a new thought process. And clearly, that was Stephen Brabant's intention when the theme for the day was adventures in thinking. Ernest Holmes says that there is one original cause and nothing out of which we are made. In other words, we are all made from this thing itself, and that is why we are called either the Son of God, or, to neutralize it a little bit for the feminine energy here, the daughters of God. This is what we are. This is not what we think. This is not what we do. This is what we are. We are children of the Most High. And because we could not be anything else, we don't really know how much we are of this godlike essence until something comes up to shake the very foundations that we have laid for ourselves. Are these foundations strong enough to withstand adversity? Are these foundations strong enough to withstand difficulty in our lives? And difficulty is one of those nebulous words that can mean so many different things for so many different people. When confronted with a diagnosis of a terminal illness, do we have a foundation that's strong enough to hold us in good stead? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe yes, maybe no. So, when the foundations are shaken, we are then forced at some level to see the God in everything, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly, as Michael alluded to in the beginning. In honor of Martin Luther King Jr., he said this: returning violence for violence multiplies violence, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. So what I got to realize this week is that I got to love even the woman who wrote the article in the newspaper, because at some level she was using our God-given right to freedom of expression. That's the same, that's God-given in the same way it is that what almost Reverend Stephen, Dr. Stephen shared last Sunday, and what I said afterwards. There was a woman who commented on the shooting in Tucson as I was listening this morning, and she said, "What's wrong with us? Shouldn't we be treating one another with dignity and respect?" That was her simple statement. She was bereft. There was nothing that could give her solace because she happened to be right there to see everything that happened. Rabbi Michael said that when we yell out, humiliating remarks and publicly denounced someone who is preaching from the pulpit. He said, "We have broken one of the most sacred of Jewish laws." He said, that the sanctuary of a church is that. It's a sanctuary. It's a sacred space. And if we feel in any way compromised by anything that's said from the pulpit, we have the right to question it, but maybe in a different forum, in a little different way. One or two people happened to speak out in a wildly inappropriate way, and both have since apologized for their behavior. They have. One may never come back to church, and the others, they called to tell me they wouldn't be here today, but they'll be back because they love this center and they love the people. Ernest tells us that when we see God as God is, then we will see ourselves as we are. This is the great revelation as far as I'm concerned. Listen carefully to what I'm about to say. Very carefully. We can only see God by looking at God through our own eyes. We will find a better God when we arrive at a higher standard for ourselves. Now, I'm going to reiterate again that the highest opinion I have of myself has to be filtered through the lowest opinion I have of anyone else. Oh my gosh, is that lost on anyone here? God interprets itself to each one of us in a way that we can understand. But God must interpret itself through us. And Spirit can make no gift that we do not accept. This has been the most incredible gift in a very obtuse and so charged way. So at this point in my travels, as the spiritual director of this wonderful sanctuary, what needs to happen? What needs to happen here? Well, first I pray, second I pray, third I pray, and then I pray some more. Because that's really what's brought me to my own knees in terms of what it is that I need to do for myself. I can't answer to that for the rest of you. I can't. Do not believe for 1 second that I was not undone by what happened, or that I don't care because I am not reactive or wanting a pint of blood from someone. That would be the easy way to rally everyone in support. And let's get them. Let's kill the messenger. Isn't that the way of the world sometimes? Well, I'm not about to do that. Again, to quote Martin Luther King Jr., the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. I care deeply because I know that feelings were hurt. And when somebody hurts our feelings, there's the tendency to want to retaliate in some way. Somebody was in pain. Several somebodies were in pain. And so in addition to praying, I did Ho'oponopono. You all know what that is, right? That's the Hawaiian healing art. Please forgive me for whatever it is in me that has created this in you. I love you. I apologize. Thank you. Please forgive me for whatever it is in me that has created this in you. My teachers this week have been many and varied. Do I wish that I could just sort of scrape everything under the carpet and not have to deal with it? Yes and no. Yes and no. Yes, because that would seem the easier, softer way on the surface. And no, because something similar would come up disguised in a different costume with a different face at a different time in a different venue, and I would be confronted with whatever I needed to be confronted with at that time. Let's get it over with. Let's get it over with right here and right now. Lay it on the table, say, this happened, so what? Get over it. That's my new metaphysical phrase, as you all know. I mean, it's really, I know that when feelings are hurt, I often remember one time Maureen, my administrative assistant at the Granada Hills Center, sometimes she would catch the brunt of something that happened in and around personalities. And very rarely, in all the time that she was there, did I ever have that I feel mean-spirited. But when I did, I remember this one time, she just cocked her head to one side and looked at me as I'm going, bleh, 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 like that. She put her head to the side and she looked at me and she goes, oh, she said, your feelings are hurt. And you know, isn't that just the way of the world? When our feelings are hurt, somebody else should suffer as much as we're suffering. So, I discovered something about us this week. We are resilient. We are loving and generous. We make mistakes, and we're not punished for those mistakes, but by those mistakes. You know, we've all had times in our lives when we wished we could take back our words and put those feathers back in the pillowcase. I know I have. You know, there are not two opposing factions here. There is only one, because we're all interconnected. That one universal mind is my mind, is the mind of every other person here. In varying degrees, as I said, when one person is in pain, we're all in pain. When one person is in joy, we're all in joy. God works for us by working through us. Today's a new day, so let's begin to accept today more good than we experienced yesterday, or last Sunday, or last year. And as Ernest says, we will reap the harvest of fulfilled desires. He also says, let us realize and work with this sound knowledge and perfect faith. There is a blessing in everything, and everything happens for good. You know, I would not have met Rabbi Michael, nor would I have got to know you, some of you, in such an intimate way. That's sort of the good news and the bad news in some ways. But you also, those of you who have spoken to me this week, have gotten to know me in a more intimate way. And, you know, instead of having to wait 3 or 4 years to find out who I am, you found out in 1 week. So, you know, this is what someone would call a trial by fire, if you will, but always remembering that the strength of our personal conviction, the strength that we all have, the integrity that almost Reverend Sandra talked about, is something that we all have, that we all have this inherently. The phoenix rises from the ashes with a new and a more enlightened outlook. Ernest says that as high as we make our mark in mind and spirit, so high will be its outward manifestation in our material world. You know, something here at the center wants to be healed, but before that can happen, something unlike it might need to be revealed, as my beloved Dr. Sue told me this morning, so that we can see there is nothing to fear in the revealing of it. Each one of us may have something that we have carried under the surface, or a burden of some kind, believing ourselves to be, whatever activity we've engaged in, to be unforgivable. But at the core of who we are, there's a forgivable part of every one of us. And that if you need permission to be forgiven for anything, real or imagined, I forgive you. I forgive you. It's kind of like going to confession and you get absolution. You know, I give you absolution, and I'm not going to tell you to do 3 Hail Marys and 4 Our Fathers. And for those Catholics here, you'll understand what I mean by that. But here is the upshot of all of this. Something awful happened and something wonderful happened. Awful, awe-filled, and wonder-filled happened here. And we are ready to move on up that ladder and see where it takes us, knowing that with God, all things are possible. Will you join me in consciousness, please?